Graham, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Pleased to meet you.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate your humanitarian contribution, your humanitarian activity in Ukraine during the last year of the conflict, last year of the war, because it's not just a war, it's a long-term conflict with Russia. And for a lot of Ukrainians, the war started 9 years ago. So we have had a huge conflict war with Russia, and you help us from the first weeks of the day. What is your philosophy of your organization? I know that you had a long-term experience in other countries, now Ukraine. So what can you say about your philosophy?
Well, we believe that every person in the world should have the right to a dignified death without pain. But that's a huge mission. So our specific goal is to help people in South and East Europe. That's the region that we work in. So I came into the hospice movement because my father was diagnosed with cancer in 1978, and he had months of really awful pain. And someone very kindly put me in touch with the hospice that was in London. It was the first hospice in the UK. And after just a few days, it was like a miracle. He was suddenly free of pain. He was able to come back home. And it was Christmas time, and we were able to have Christmas dinner as a family together. He lived another 6 months, and during that time, I realised that to have the kind of pain that he had was totally unnecessary. Mm-hmm. And it really inspired me to do something. So I started a hospice in my local town in Dartford in Kent. So that was the first part of the story. And then it just happened I went to Romania as a tourist in 1975 and made some friends, went back several times in the communist period, particularly in 1989 when things were at their worst. And I really saw such appalling suffering. And then after the revolution in 89, I went back just a few days afterwards, and a friend of mine took me to the cancer hospital. And I saw a young man dying again in awful pain. And it just sowed a seed in my mind that perhaps that's the way that I could help with the situation in Romania. So I took the experience I'd had in starting the hospice in the UK and tried to implement that in Romania. So we started very small with just a very small team. Because of the huge need, it grew very quickly. And so now we have a very large hospice organisation in Romania. It's called Hospice Casa Speranței, which is hope in Romanian. Mm-hmm. We have a staff of nearly 300, and we have 6 different locations. And it's been really encouraging to see the way that hospice care has become accepted in Romania, and there are many more people now receiving the care they should have at the end of life.
So you started because of your personal understanding, personal emotion, perception of the ill, of the suffering because of the ill, and then you started your activity in Romania, actually on the eve of the collapse of Soviet Union, and now Ukraine.
Yes, I mean, it's been a long journey. So after Romania, we were encouraged to sort of reach out to some of the countries around, and we went to Serbia, Moldova, Albania. But when the war started, we had trained a team from Ukraine, from Iryna-Mialkovska, in the hospice in Brasov in Romania. So I think just a few days after the war started, I got in contact with them and said that, this is a terrible situation. If you feel there are any ways in which we can help, then, please let me know. And their first request was for us to provide an ambulance because obviously most of the fighting was in the east, and Iryna-Mialkovska, being in the west, they were receiving a lot of patients from the war areas that were affected by the initial fighting. So we managed to raise the money for an ambulance, and then it was a generator so they could keep the electricity on when there were problems. But after a few months, I realized that, this is not going to be for the short term. This is a long-term situation.
You're right.
So we appointed a country manager a guy who had shown a lot of support for the palliative care area, and he is now based in the hospice in Ivano-Frankivsk, which is our partner. And I've said to him, this is a start. We want to, to help your hospice to develop, but we also want to, try and look forward and see how we can help develop palliative care in the rest of Ukraine. From what I understand, there are only about 5 independent hospices. I mean, in the UK, we have nearly 300, so huge need for more. There are also many hospitals which do provide palliative care.
So you visited Ukraine. You see the current situation after the beginning of the war.
Yeah.
And for you, the person who are practically involved in humanitarian activity, what do you think about this war and about the support of your country, of my country? I mean, what are the roots of such kind of interconnectivity?
Well, when I crossed the border to Ukraine, it wasn't long before a siren went off and we were told to take shelter. In a way, I'm glad that happened, because now I kind of understand, what Ukrainians have to go through on a daily basis. And when you're there, it means so much more than hearing about it on the news. But I believe that there's huge support for Ukraine in the UK. And it's across all political parties. So I think that we're committed to supporting Ukraine for the longer term. I think we understand history very well from the Second World War. Churchill didn't give up, did he? He always believed that we could win the war. And I can see, from speaking to the Ukrainians, that I know that there is a strong belief that the war is winnable. So I think, we're on the side of right. We see the terrible atrocities that are committed by Russia every day, and a sense of evil really that is pervading that whole sphere. There's just no respect for human life. The suffering that is caused by this totally unnecessary war is just terrible. But I think, each of us have to consider, what we can do ourselves to play a part in, being alongside Ukraine for now, but also, how we can share our expertise, our knowledge, that will help develop things in the long term.
Well, you're absolutely right. I also do the same. I also try to think about how I can contribute practically as a humanitarian activist, as a journalist, as a public figure. And my next question concerns actually the future. And what do you see and how you see the future cooperation between Ukraine and the UK, the societies, our potential new projects, common projects between the societies, and what do you see about the long-term the perspective of this war? So if it would be, and I think it would be, long-term conflict, we should be ready and prepare ourselves for the long-term, I would say, test challenge, if you could say, yes. And what are your plans in such kind of circumstance? Are you going to share to make your activity broader in Ukraine?
Yes, we very much hope so. And as I said, in Romania, we've seen how palliative care has become available for so many more people in Romania. I hope and pray that our efforts will help to make palliative care available to more people in Ukraine as well. So yes, I think we see ourselves now as in for the long term, and I think by starting small, by starting with one hospice in Ivano-Frankivsk, there always needs to be a model. So if we can make that hospice really shine, then people around will see the benefit it brings to people. We also work with a small children's hospice as well, because it's all ages of people that need palliative care.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so once we've if you like achieved that part of the goal, then we can think wider. We always feel that there needs to be a presence in the capital. So we've made clear from the beginning that we'd like to see something develop in Kyiv.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, there are no independent hospice
Mm-hmm.
units in Kyiv at all. The palliative care wards are in hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I think we need to establish a model of how palliative care really works. And the difference between hospital and hospice is the fact that in hospice we don't treat the disease only, we treat the person. So every person is spirit, soul and body. So we help with the physical side, controlling pain, but there's also the emotional side, and there's also the spiritual side. And many people have questions, why me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we also treat the whole family, because it's not just the person who's got cancer and who's dying that suffers, it's also the family around them. That could be grandparents as well, or children. And so we try to embrace the whole family, and that's what's distinct about hospice and why it works so well and has developed so much in the UK.
Thank you for your interview. Thanks for your explanation of your philosophy, of your plans. I really appreciate your help. I think that you're an example of the sincere attitude of your nation towards Ukrainians, and I personally came here to meet a person like you, because for us it's a great honor to see and to communicate with such persons like you, especially that you really want to keep on supporting. That's just to do it temporal projects, for PR or for other things like sometimes politicians do. We need much more sustainable, I would say, cooperation between societies. Yes, please.
And I couldn't do it on my own. Obviously, there's a big team around me, and you need both people who lead and the people who help in so many different ways on the medical side or on the fundraising side. And one thing that really encourages me is the appointment of a new British ambassador to Ukraine, and he was British ambassador to Romania before, and he worked so hard, and as far as we were concerned, he gave us a huge amount of support in developing the hospice in Romania. So I know that I have his backing and his support, and that's going to mean a lot in the years to come. And I think he'll be very well placed to support Ukraine and make sure that we in Britain know what the situation is, and that we carry on supporting in every way that we can.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.